for us, it's kind of good to look across like the layer of the film land and be like, all right, well, what are these cool people doing, and how can we like kind of yeah.
What about that cool, bro?
How can we sort of have a conversation among ourselves and sort of build this hive mind about what's happening and yeah, where everything's going. So, if possible, I'd like for each of you to sort of like introduce yourselves and your company and where you are on your journey. And to intro the video that will play, and then we can take it from there.
So hi, my name is Mahesh Ramachandra. I'm Chief Product Officer with Smash. And I'm going to play a short video which will tell you what Smash is about. Yeah, and that's the panel. So let's press play.
So, you're a filmmaker dreaming of that big breakthrough, and you've got what it takes. A great film concept, and a script that's on point and gives you goosebumps. What you need is a strong pitch that gets you in front of the right people. I mean, how hard can it be to design a winning pitch? Well, a great film pitch is much more than a catchy log line. Decision makers want to see a well thought out idea that meets an industry standard. Meet Smash, the game-changing platform that helps emerging content creators get your film off the ground and helps you pitch it. Smash is a unique collection of free digital tools that helps you articulate your story into a pitch-perfect, shareable presentation. Sounds great, right? So what can you do on Smash? You can create incredible industry-standard presentations. Add your creative team, cast members, a finance plan, and even scripts or treatments. Everything a commissioner needs to make a decision. Our partnership with Getty Images gives our users free access to millions of high-resolution, non-watermarked images and videos to create dazzling mood boards. And if the thought of creating complex finance plans keeps you awake at night, don't worry, we've got you covered. Smash is plugged into a network of film sales companies who can provide you with professional feature film sales estimates. And that's not all. Protecting your IP is super important, and that's where the Smash Pitch Protector comes in. Your project is safely recorded and tracked on Smash so that you are always in control. There's a new word for film pitch presentations. Smash.
Idea.
It's the best thing we've done so far, isn't it? The video. Yeah, so we're here to connect young or new filmmakers with decision makers, giving them the tools and some of the processes with which to do that. And I guess as we progress through this panel, we'll talk about some of the technologies that we are using right now and some of the ones we hope to introduce over the next year or so. But suffice to say that this is one industry that needs quite a lot of tech to really help things along. Yeah, that's Smash. I'll hand it over to.
Great, cheers. Hi, I'm Craig. I'm co-founder of Filmed, and it's a collaboration platform for the independent film industry. And we're at a point where we are bringing sort of filmmakers together, because one of the key sort of problems that we look to solve is that you can be down the road from following an aspiring filmmaker and have no idea they're there. And obviously, filmmakers need each other to collaborate to make their own sort of footage and material. So we've got this platform, and we have a sort of a whole suite of tools for productions. We also have sort of direct messaging and forums and all helpful tools to sort of help filmmakers collaborate to connect. There's a whole mapping system as well, so you can find other filmmakers based on sort of their skill set, but also equipment lists, location, etc. So yeah, we actually have a video as well. We're just going to play it, is that right? We got it? No, we do. Check out film.co.uk for the video as well. But this is co-founder as well, Craig.
Hello. And like you said, the democratizing entrance into the industry is a really big thing for us. Just trying to create more opportunities, making it as accessible as possible. And I suppose there's certain routes you can go to, to make films and still be getting like public funding and stuff like that. But it's really hard to get that or get to that level. And what we want to do is help people create a proof of concept as what kind of artists they are. So that's what we're aiming for.
Sorry, just wanted to check. That's film.
FILMD.
Right. Thank you.
Is that .co.uk or .com?
.co.uk.
Cool. Yeah. There you go.
Great. Thanks.
Hi, it's Boldy, that's loud. I'm Nick Sadler from First Flights, which is first-flights.com. So it's First Flights is a talent and incubator platform, part of the Goldfinch group, which is Goldfinch is a big finance and production company. The main two things that First Flights has been doing in the last couple of years is we run a short film fund, and we're doing our 5th one at the moment, which is female voices, so it's just for female filmmakers, and that's going really well. And then we just launched in January FF3, which is our crypto-based, decentralized crowdfunding platform. So how many people here have heard of OpenSea?
Yeah.
Okay, so think Kickstarter and OpenSea for filmmakers. That's what FF3 is. We did our first raise with Stephen Graves, The Dead of Winter, for a short film. So we needed 10,000 USDC, which we delivered in The Dead of Winter tokens, and we raised that we went over it in 7 days. So that was our kind of proof of concept. And then we've got the second iteration of the platform, which is coming at the end of this month. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. We've got a community of about 4,000 people, a little Discord channel, and yeah, if you want to find out more, go to the website.
So my first question is, on each of your platforms, and you can, big yourselves up doing this, but like, how can filmmakers make better decisions using your platforms, and what sort of tech can be enabled to provide that better decision making for filmmakers?
So I think for Smash, I think it's first important to think about who our primary user is. And most of the creators who are on Smash, they are relatively new to the industry. So they're putting together their first film, they've got ideas, they're script writers, and what we are finding is that what they need in the first instance is that guided sort of process for putting together a pitch. So the way that we've done it with Smash really helps them through the process, so that we are asking all the things that are required to put together an industry standard pitch, or that if you're a decision maker or a commissioner, if you were to receive a Smash pitch, it would contain all the information that you need. So that's kind of like one of the first things that we're putting in to help new filmmakers along. I guess, and there's a bunch of other features on there, but in terms of decision making, one of the crucial things is our partnership with Getty Images, because you've got a great idea, you've got a script idea. How do you bring it to life? How do you show what it could look like, or what maybe some of the locations or some of the moods are? So you want to put together a mood board. Where do you get the pictures from? And how if you were going to put together a film about drag racing in Tokyo at night, neon city, unless you've actually been there, you're probably not going to get any of those pictures. So we've got an exclusive partnership with Getty Images to use the high quality full res image library within a Smash platform for pitching purposes, and that I think really helps helps filmmakers decide what might this thing look like. And I think that helps to get the recipients excited with it. Yeah.
So I was here yesterday with your partners, and they didn't really go over, like, for consulting that you do as well, correct? That you kind of consult filmmakers.
Yeah, to help.
That's like the biggest hurdle within the industry, because I do some consulting as well, and rationalizing a project, a lot of filmmakers don't really understand the abilities, like, you can't have Tom Cruise in your script.
Yeah.
Unless you know him personally. Like, it's like breaking it down, as well as, like you mentioned, the locations or tax incentives, kind of opening that box, saying, like, you can shoot this anywhere. Don't, like, keep yourself contained for where you live. And I think that's, like, an amazing thing right now. And the filmmakers don't really understand that.
Yeah, I think that again, kind of going back to the way we structure the pitch process, it helps the questions that we receive. So when my co-founders Christine and Fiona, if they receive questions, they're quite targeted to the part of the pitch that they're stuck in. And I think rather than it being the kind of an open-ended thing, but that's where I think some of the aspects of community are really important, and that's what I'm going to handle with you guys, because I think the community part is quite critical to helping filmmakers along.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Well, we have built a project section within films, and what we're basically trying to do there is allow a space, a private space, that sort of project creators can collaborate with their team, their production, their crew, their cast. And so we built this project section out. They can have private sort of conversations directly in there. They can also submit opportunities which then go out to films, and then people can sort of submit to those opportunities, so they can manage their submissions and everything else like this, submitting their own self-tapes, etc., and body of work. But one thing that's really cool is within projects that we built out as well is the ability to share documents privately to each other, so release forms and call sheets, etc. can always share directly in this private community. And of course, any sort of shooting scripts, etc. We've also built in, and this is a recent thing, we've also built in a calendar. So there's a sort of a calendar per project that then they can sort of communicate the rehearsal schedules, etc. And we're trying to build a sort of a place where filmmakers can kind of house their project, and then from that central location they can sort of run all their communication through to all of their team. And that's why we ultimately we're going to be building even more tools out within the suite, right from sort of development through to post-production. So one of the things we will be building out, which we expect for later in the summer, is a writer's room, so people can sort of develop their scripts directly in films, and then they can seek sort of private and also site-wide sort of feedback on script pitches, etc. So we're developing that into the production suite of tools as well. Another thing, so in terms of making better decisions, they're able to sort of collaborate more closely on a project. Also, one thing that we're building out for a collaboration we're working on at the moment is we have a screening room, and think of this as a sort of mini movie for people to sort of share their work, their previous work, and also work to sort of either pitching or sizzle reels, etc. And this screening room has the ability now to sort of comment on videos, etc. So you're able to sort of seek feedback. So you're able to sort of almost screen your movie to other filmmakers and get sort of an insight into your first draft and one of those tweaks you might make, etc. So using the tech within film, people are able to sort of run their own private screenings and then sort of seek feedback on their first drafts of their films as well, just to make it better. So yeah.
No, I think when I'm not doing this, I'm a writer, and I think like with the writer's room thing, I think in terms of better decisions, we just need to we want to guide first-time filmmakers through the process completely. Like when I'm sitting down to write a feature film and it's 90 pages long, final draft's fantastic, but I get very lost. I feel like I've gone to Oz. Like I just don't know where I'm headed, and what we plan to do is like 10 pages in, you'll get a reminder of has there been an inciting incident or something interesting happened, which again will hopefully help people make better decisions.
So, just trying to think, probably the way that we could help make better decisions on our platform would be probably the education side of it. So I don't know if there's anything quite like these guys to help out, because ours is a bit more of like you use the platform almost as a service or you submit stuff. But I think for the Web3 and NFT space, because we've been learning a lot about this in the last 4 months, we've put together a lot of of education on it and like an FAQ. So, and we know that's a really important thing for having filmmakers come into this like amazing new space, and letting people understand the opportunities and how it's taking away the traditional gatekeepers. It's very exciting. So I guess the why you might come to our platform to make better decisions would be if you want to learn about how you can use the crypto space to benefit your film financing of your films and your distribution of them as well.
So Cinnect for us has been 2 years in the making, and over the last year especially, we're seeing a trend in disruptive solutions popping up. So I wanted to ask, from your experience, why do you think we're seeing this shift happen now, especially within film and entertainment?
Probably because we had the pandemic. There's been a massive change where there's been more online community growing, I guess. I'm not sure that's why I think it's a change, because and that's not just in the film industry, I think that's across all industries. And then in particular for us, the explosion of cryptocurrencies and NFTs last year, that's created a very fertile ground for developers, and it started with art, then it went to music. Film is the next kind of evolution of people using the technology to benefit the industry. So those have been the biggest changes, probably from my point of view.
I think we've seen, particularly for the creators who have signed up for Smash, we're trying to encourage more diverse voices to get into filmmaking, to get into creativity, and being able to reach out to underrepresented audiences means that you can't rely on the traditional ways of making a film. If you haven't been to film school, if you don't come from the right background, if you don't have access to some of those tools, what you then need to do is, what else can you do? And technology helps to solve a lot of those problems. Not all of them, obviously, but where we can use technology to provide tools, processes, community, and monetization, that is a huge boost for individuals, for communities, for audiences who just haven't had all of the access that they may have had before. And I think some of those barriers are certainly breaking down. And you don't have to be in the right place, because a lot of things can be done remotely now. And you don't necessarily need to have tons of money to be able to get things done. You've got your iPhone, you've got your computer, you've got access to the internet. You can go much further than you could have gone some time before.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, actually, because you're right. Now, with the advances in tech and sort of the availability for such high-end material now with such a really small budget has really sort of amplified the ability to be able to create great films and on such a small budget. And I think with regards to the shift in the industry and why now, I think there's been a shift during the pandemic as well, but even slightly before. I think people that want control, people have a need for control, and I think within the film industry there was quite often it felt like there was very little control. You were always waiting for the phone to ring, no matter what position you're in, sort of in the sort of film industry. And I think, and that's one thing we're trying to really sort of help with films as well, is sort of just giving back a little bit more control to the industry, to the talent, and things like that, by giving them access to each other, and obviously the equipment that's needed to sort of make films. So I think there's a lot of industries, the older industries, that are sort of older companies in this industry that I think are going to have to try and catch up here and sort of give more control back to the individual filmmakers, because having sort of barriers to entries and you need 3 contracts before you can join this service, and etc. I think those are just, people no longer accept that anymore. I think and that's come with this more online-based community through the pandemic as well.
Can I just add to that? I think as well, what we've noticed is there's been a consolidation of IP at the big streamers, Netflix, AT&T, Disney, etc. And what that means is a lot of underrepresented topics, and filmmakers are falling through the cracks. But there's still awesome stories to be told. And I think what the response to that is what you're seeing right here. Like with Smash, you can now go in and create an industry professional pitch, which is what you need if you're pitching. I know because I get pitched all the time. Then you're like, cool, we can then go to FF3 and then raise the money for our short, if we're talking about our short film, say our short film. Great, now we've got the money, we now need to go and actually produce that and connect with our crew. So now we go to film D. And so then these are underrepresented topics and people can actually go ahead and there is an ecosystem to support them.
Sorry, just to add from a Connect perspective, so once you've gone to film,
I forgot what
to find your cast and crew, the idea is that Connect will then provide you a go-to-market option where you can upload your project, whether it's still in production or completed. You have sellers from around the world who are buying international diverse content, and you're in charge of what that contract looks like for you. So, you've got the right to go back and forth, and you can, those decision-making powers are then sort of brought back to the individual filmmaker or distributor or production.
So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So
Yeah.
is that right? Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's it, yeah.
You'll definitely need to talk after this.
Hold on, you three or am I two?
Yeah.
I have a quick question with Cinnect.
Connect.
Connect, sorry. Are you more of like an aggregator, like Film Hub or Viewer or that sort of thing, or what?
Yeah, so it's kind of somewhere in between Viewer, Film Hub, like to answer that something. I'm a bit stumped. So it's one thing to kind of have an idea, and I think it's another thing to sort of bring it to market. And for us, in building Connect, we had this idea, and then along the way, very helpful people who were able to sort of consult with and hear their opinions on. We learned a lot in a very short space of time. And so for each of you in your respective journeys in bringing your platforms to life, what has been key learning for you all?
I think for us, for Smash, the pandemic has been interesting for us. It sort of kiboshed a whole bunch of our plans, but at the same time, we got some government funding as well as part of the COVID Unionist grant, which was helpful, which got us off the ground. So we learned that much. But I think the thing that we've kind of constantly learning, and I'd be the first to say we haven't learned everything yet, is trying to understand the needs of our audience and our customers. Right? There's a huge demand for solutions from both creators as well as decision makers, commissioners, financiers. They are really looking for great quality content, preferably from a diverse range of voices, and there is simply not enough content to fill up what all these platforms want. So we're constantly trying to understand what it is that what we call the decision makers, the financiers, the commissioners, the producers, what are they looking for? And they're desperately looking for stuff. And on the other hand, we're working with quite a wide range of creators as well, of all levels of experience and ability. And I think one of the hardest things is deciding where to focus our product, where to actually put our efforts in. You can see probably from everybody on this panel, there's a fair bit of overlap as well, because I think the journey of a creator or a filmmaker from that kind of nascent idea all the way to monetization and distribution is very long, and I think it's been one of the things for us is to really try to understand what our audiences want and try to offer them a solution for it.
Yeah, so the biggest lesson I think, the biggest lesson we learned in the film is that because we also sort of started just prior to the pandemic, and we were sort of, Craig and I, we've been friends for a long time, and we always had this idea that we would create this sort of collaboration platform like film. And then it came to fruition in sort of late 2019, we started development, and we had our sort of MVP available really sort of mid-March, and then obviously that's immediately when the pandemic hit. So we weren't necessarily going to launch an MVP for a collaboration platform for the independent film industry as soon as the worldwide pandemic hit. So we're very fortunate in this position. We didn't sort of need to necessarily launch at that point, so we just continued building. And so we were just constantly speaking to people in the industry and asking what they wanted, and we just built those features. And so we were able to sort of launch, which we only launched sort of 11 weeks ago, I think it was, in late January. And so we were able to launch with way more features than we would have necessarily launched with initially on an MVP, and tried to grow from there. And one thing that's been really surprising actually is that as soon as we did launch, as soon as the sort of press release kind of went out, we had the likes of the Cinnect, First Flights, and also BFI and Biffa kind of reach out to us and were extremely interested in kind of what we've built, but also they were saying things like, this would be really good for our members, why don't we kind of merge our members over to you, and etc. And we were kind of shocked that the biggest lesson for us is that we can actually also build not only for just individual filmmakers, but also film communities. And so that's why we're sort of branching out into, okay, so how can filmmakers sort of showcase and distribute their work, and how can they create their work with sort of the writer's room, and we're trying to sort of cover a lot more of the sort of filmmaking process, purely to cater for those communities as opposed to just necessarily the individual filmmaker. So that's been a massive lesson for us, I think.
Yeah, so we actually met before, and we've decided to partner up. I think we're going to, with our community, once especially with the latest one, the female voices, all the winners, they will then be able to get access to their platform for a year. I can't remember the details, but yeah, straight away know what they're doing, what it builds the community, and Mahesh as well. I think afterwards, 100% want to partner with you, and because a lot of it, I've had to create a template to say to do a pitch, and it gets used so much, and it'd be awesome to be able to go here, your submission fee, covers, an introduction thing to that. So yeah, looking forward to that. But what we learned, holy moly. So launching FF3 we only decided to do it in November last year, and then we were going to launch it on February the 1st. So we had 8 weeks, and plus we had Christmas and New Year's Eve break over that as well. And I was going, we need some more time, and we do it in partnership with Rain Protocol, so there are developers, so there's a team of 4 of us, so 2 developers and me and Phil. And they were like, no, just keep going, just do it, and we're like, okay. So we kind of kept moving forward. Probably the biggest thing I learned is the technology still needs to be tweaked. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. The people still are like, what's an NFT again? And it is so new. So that's the biggest, big thing for us is how can we get more of the film community understanding what's going on, and it's education. Exactly, it's education. Next week we've got Josephine Fernando from Female Filmmakers. I think it's the last name, right? So she's launching an NFT collection to fund her film, and she's coming on and she's doing one on female women, how they can use NFTs and cryptocurrency to make their future films. And we're going to be doing those every month, as an education webinar thing. And I think the other thing that we've realised is you need to build a community as well for these projects to take off, especially in this new space, the ones that do really well, the crypto punks, all that kind of stuff. They've built an amazing community around that. And, you know, and it's actually, you know, like, it's so easy to say, oh, you just build a community. But like, building a community is almost like saying building a customer base. Like, it's, how do you do that? It's really hard. And you know, so we're like going through the process of learning that, and you know, I'm sure you guys, you know, can share how hard that is. So yeah, those are some of the kind of things we've learned.
Did you want to
I might actually follow up for that. Are you focusing now specifically on NFTs, or is it smart contracts that enable the NFTs? Because a lot of current situations involving NFTs is kind of a reflection of ICOs. A few years ago, where they blew up, but there was a lot of fraud involved with that. So that's what I'm saying is a lot of people are starting to kind of see that negativity going. But I see that still the underlying Web3 development of smart contracts and tokenization of crowdfunding is where it's at and what should be focused on.
Yeah, 100%. And like, we don't want to, you know, we're not launching as well a first flight coin and doing that, like, hey, you know, buy into our coin and do that kind of thing, because there are a lot of people who are like saying they're going to do all this stuff and they're actually doing it, and they're really going, how can I cash in on this? I can see an opportunity to make some quick money. That's not our aim. We're like, how can we genuinely use the technology to create value for the filmmakers? And a decentralized crowdfunding platform is a good way. And you know, that's why we're starting with short films as well. So, and the NFT thing is like, we're helping them do that, but that's, you know, that's, instead of saying, you know, traditional crowdfunder, or you get a copy of the DVD and stuff, you know, instead you'll get a NFT of the film poster in the limited edition, and that will give you access to the Discord community. So that's how we're using it. And to go on having smart contracts, we are developing a smart contract that will allow a fractionalized division of royalties coming in as well as also having a way in which you can take the royalties that are in traditional sales and having a way of bringing them on chain and having transparency for, you know, and kind of getting around a whole Hollywood accounting and filmmakers not being paid.
I got a question. I got two questions. I got a question for Ken and a question for yourself. So are you aware of Pose TV?
Pose TV?
Yeah, Pose TV. Because they're doing a similar thing that you guys are doing as well with the NFTs. And,
oh, awesome.
Yeah, that's why. So when you said like everyone is doing it now, it is a good open space for.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, we're part of the NFT film squad, and all of the film squad, we're all doing our kind of version. But I have to say, this is one of the coolest fucking things about Web3 space is at the moment anyway, there's not really any ego. Like, everybody is just keen to help each other out. There's just all this transparency. It's such an exciting space. And I honestly, if you're not in the space yet, I highly encourage you, if you're a filmmaker, to just start learning about it.
I got another question. So a lot of my friends now, they're getting crypto now, but like not everyone's aware of what crypto to get. So what type of crypto would you take on? Would you take on Solana, Cardano, like Algorand? Like what type of crypto would you take on? Because a lot of filmmakers do not understand that space.
I would take on ones that are doing
smart contracts.
Well, or just ones that are like, look at how they are, whether they're doing, how they're verifying their transactions. Okay. Essentially, like how much of an impact they've got. So yeah, we use Matic, and we're on the Polygon network. Okay. So if anyone doesn't know, like basically you hear about Bitcoin is using up all this energy and that's totally shit the environment. So there are new versions. Polygon is one of them that uses less energy than a Visa transaction. So all I would say is, I'm not going to recommend any, but do your research.
No, I know the reason. I'm just saying, filmmakers within my community, some people don't know what crypto is. They just know Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's what everyone speaks about. But there's a lot of other, crypto stuff.
I don't know.
So, exactly. So that's what I was just saying. So like, as someone who's a filmmaker, like what what should filmmakers look out for?
Well, I mean, everything's going to
Environmental,
change
it's
because
just environmental impact.
around the world, there's different countries utilizing cryptocurrency. So it's going to be a tradable asset coming next few years.
Just do, yeah, I mean, to be honest, go, you know, just next Thursday at 4 p.m. GMT, like, you know, tune into the next webinar that we're doing. We're going to talk about all that kind of stuff, so.
I'll be tuning in. I'll definitely tune in.
Yeah, awesome.
And then my next question is for Cinnect. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I just have a question regarding like, what type of content are you guys going to take? Is it going to be short, like long, and so would it be like web series, features, everything?
Yeah. So yeah, short films, web series, feature films, all sorts of types, across different countries as well, and regions. So for us, it's really kind of looking at, sort of like internationally how can we support filmmakers and
Also, how would the payment system work? Would it be quarterly?
So that's something we're still sort of ironing out, but it's through the platform itself. So yeah, we're looking at some sort of like regular payments.
I just have to get feedback to my friends, innit? So they ask these questions.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
Why don't you ask away, man? Ask away.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker, so I'm like, they didn't want to come, so like, no, I'm just going to do that. I'll have minutes, so I have to ask them some questions.
So Nick, you've kind of like touched on this point quite a bit, so I'd like to get some of the other panelists on this. But in dealing with the new tech, new platform, education is clearly a big part of that. So how have you found like kind of educating filmmakers and kind of understanding what your platform does and how it can benefit them, and how have those conversations been like?
I think for us, the immediate challenges, most filmmakers, of whatever level of experience or expertise, they've got existing tools, right? Microsoft Word is always there. Google Docs is always there. There's PowerPoint. So there are existing tools to do your stuff in. And I think one of the first sort of challenges we had was, okay, well, how do you encourage people to use a different system that is ultimately, we believe, is going to be more beneficial, to give something that's going to be more shareable, more protected, more standardized in terms of presenting that information. So to do that, well, a lot of it was, having webinars, putting out help articles, putting together how-to videos, a lot of hand-holding sessions as well. So customer service is literally us jumping on a call, a Zoom call, and showing people how to do it, and then learning where we screwed up as well. So there is an initial sort of like barrier to get people to try out an entire platform and to put away the things that currently we're using. On the other side of the equation, with the I guess the commissioners that we deal with, there is. There's a desire to get back to the film markets, right? To go back to the comfort of going off to Cannes, going off to doing all your business there. And actually, in a way, what we're doing is much more decentralized, much more immediate, much more democratic in a way, and probably less glamorous. So we kind of have to fight with that as well a little bit. But I would say that again, there is a need. There is a genuine need on the part of decision makers to be able to find these new voices and to find this new content. So I think they're willing to do that. So yeah, it's been a slow process. I'd be the first to say. Yeah.
I came a bit late. I came from a shoot, but I was gonna say, So I came for Cinnect. I didn't know there was gonna be other people here. But can I get your socials after? Because I gotta pass this on to my friends, and I gotta.
Yeah, sure.
So I thought it was just Cinnect was gonna be there.
We will feed you with all the stuff. So,
Yeah.
my partner's back there, so
Oh,
she'll
yeah.
give you stuff.
So with films, I mean, to be honest, I'm a filmmaker and my head's not completely in tech. I could probably talk more about Technicolor than I could the internet. But one thing is, and I'll let Craig talk about all of that, because he's the mind behind creating this platform and making it so accessible and great. But one thing as a filmmaker, when we put our heads together to make this, what was really important for me is why short films are really important. It's hard enough being a filmmaker, or it's a lonely jaunt to become a filmmaker, and that's why we wanted film. We wanted a collaboration platform with people. I feel stagnant a lot of the time. I procrastinate a lot as a filmmaker when nothing's happening, and we wanted this world, this community where people can just constantly keep inspiring people to do so. But what's important for us in terms of taking the control back is that when you make short films, or you direct music promos, that's your voice. And what will happen is essentially when you start to pitch for bigger films, or like you start to feature-length films, all too often you're told to fit into a mold, and that it has to be this or it has to be that. Like right now in cinema, if you have a very accessible, commercial, feel-good film, you could probably get that made tomorrow. If you have Saint Maud, or you have something that's slightly challenging in any way, it can be tougher. So we really, and that's what, with short films, we really want to nurture the talent and just allow them to really find their voices. Because that's at the end of the day, you can make a bunch of films, but if you have to bend and shape and sharpen the edges of your voice, you're not going to be happy with it. So I think it's empowering the creators to be themselves, and that's what will be successful. Now let people do the tech.
Great. So I think with our platform specifically, I think there's a lot, because there's a lot of tools now we've built out. There's a lot of information architecture, a lot of user experience, a lot of UI sort of positions here that we needed to kind of go through. And obviously the likes of ourselves have got one version of that, but then the members just brings so much more. And so exactly right, with a new platform like ours, we've had to jump on sort of one-on-ones with via direct messages with our sort of film members, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm confused about this element, or I can't find this," and you're like, "Oh, of course, you would expect it to be in that position, wouldn't you, in terms of the hierarchy of information?" Okay, that makes total sense. And so we need all those extra eyes and ears sort of going through the sort of platform to kind of understand that. So from an education point of view, it's more that we're being educated and the users sort of interacting with it. We went through a whole 4-month beta, and there was lots that sort of got brought up in that, and some really integral points that really sort of made films better. But now we're on the nuances, and we're sort of getting, people are submitting film grants, and people are sort of submitting to the screening rooms, and people are submitting to each other's projects, and submitting show reels to each other, etc. So they're getting the nuances of each of these smaller elements of the site that user testing is amplified in comparison to what we could do with a small team that we have using. So yes, it's more education for ourselves, I think.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Yeah, I do. How would you describe each of your communities when it comes to age, background, experience, as a whole? Would you be able to describe it?
Yeah, I'd say 18 to 35, 50-50 between male and female filmmakers actually, and probably 70% UK based, 20% US, 10% of the world, and predominantly short filmmakers, because that's a big part of what we do, and at the beginning of their careers as well, which is probably going to be similar to these guys. And the reason is like I personally, my thing in life is I like to find people who are at the beginning of their journeys that are creative, they've got a voice and they have talent. They just need to create their thing and have someone bring it to the world. Like there's no problem. Like all they need to do is be able to make it, and it's amazing. Like and as soon as lots of people hear it and see it and can break through the noise, they'll be recognized for the genius that they are. And anyone who's pushing the boundaries in creative areas, that's who I love to work with, which is why First Flights, I just love what we've done there for that.
I got a question for everyone.
Just finish this question and then get to
So in terms of our sort of user base currently, we thought that upon the creation of this film that there'd be a lot more sort of actors sort of joining the platform. just purely because of the ratio of actors to crew is that way. But actually, we found that it's mostly production that have joined us so far, and which is great because that's where the sort of the projects are created. So right now it's heavily crew based, and then we also thought there'd be a lot of first time filmmakers and people who are looking to get into the industry, etc. But again, we found that actually there's a lot of highly regarded sort of filmmakers that are joining, and people with actually quite a decent sized portfolio, and it's not their first rodeo. And this is really good because when we originally sort of pitched films, we wanted to kind of get a bit of a proof of concept. We kind of came up with a big mind map of what it could be, and then tried to circle a sort of MVP of this, and so we could create something and put it out. But before we started developing, as we were designing, everything we kind of came up with in the architecture, we kind of just created a landing page and stuck Facebook ads behind it and said, hey, we're going to be developing this. If you want to sort of be notified, let us know. With thousands of people joining. And we were just like, wow, okay, this is really resonating. I mean, it's just a single page with some bullet point, sort of individual areas about what we're planning to build. And that gave us a real motive to kind of drive forward with it. And yeah, so now we're sort of actually getting the members in. We're growing quite quickly, I think, for such a young company, which is really nice to see. But it's certainly, from our original idea of who we'd find on the platform, it's certainly actually molding into something else. And yeah, it's about 60-40 male to female. It's mostly production, but then also obviously actors as well. And then we have, but then we've also got agents on there and producers, and so also the creative side of the industry as well. So it's quite a mix.
What made you think it was going to be a lot of actors on there?
Just because as soon as you mention in this sort of industry, there's opportunities or people are creating projects, actors will drive to these platforms. So they're much more willing to sort of join a new emerging platform.
Just try and find work, basically.
Yeah, because they're seeking opportunities. Yeah. So we just maybe naively just assumed that would be the case.
We almost started with that as well. We started with, I think, years and years ago, of creating some kind of platform for actors.
Yeah, in fact, the original sort of idea, because I used to be sort of acting, obviously Clayton is sort of fair share of acting in his time, is that I wanted to be able to communicate with other actors. I thought I just wanted to get a group of actors together and work on something. And that was where the original kind of thought came on. It was actually going to be called the Actors Wing, and is what we kind of came up with. And it was
thank God that didn't happen.
You don't have capital letters in there, it says something else. So we're like, okay, right, well, and that's when we kind of opened it up, really.
I think it was also realising that actually, to get actors together in a room just doing it is doing it, but to film it and create something, you need people to do that. So I think that's where we then pivoted to filmed.
Yeah, exactly. You can be the best actor in the world, but if you've not got a great script to say, then it's going to be very difficult. And if nobody's actually filming it, then it didn't happen. So it's that's why it's kind of become full service in the industry, really, filmed at least.
Too much. I'll just briefly say that for Smash, it's predominantly writers and producers, and I think probably more writers and thought are on the platform, because they've got this is at the very beginning of the creative process, where they've got a great idea and they're expressing it now into a concept, working out their script line, their synopses, their log lines, early drafts of scripts, putting together new boards. So it's kind of a writer-producer mix that we have.
Can I ask, do you get more, is a lot of the traffic commercials, as in ads?
I mean, the ideas.
Yeah, in terms of, because obviously that's the biggest part of, like, to direct a commercial, you need a great pitch.
Yes, strangely enough, no, it's all film short form, for the most part, yeah. Few game shows as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's always a few
good
game
idea,
shows,
though.
Yeah.
Good idea. That is a really good market for your platform.
Yeah, because commercials, so getting into that world is really hard to get in. It's just a pitch deck. Is pretty much what
Hard to charge a premium fee for commercials. It's probably where you'll make all your money in 2 years.
I actually need one.
Well, it's only 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We can book that out.
is very true. That is very true. I have a question. I was gonna say, so like I remember like in 2013, I was 21. SoundCloud just came out of nowhere. Yeah? So all my friends were musicians, just started like doing things and Chance the Rapper. There was certain musicians broke through SoundCloud. So I remember like in 2016, I heard of this thing called Film Freeway. Now it's like a big thing where independent filmmakers go submit their film festivals. So like I'm seeing that happening with the distribution and marketing within the film industry now. Do you guys see that as well? Like 10 to 20 years from now, there'll be like filmmakers who become really big filmmakers from these platforms.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also it's like very particular. It's something I'm discovering with the new Web3 space is everybody's kind of in a rush. But we just need to be patient. Like this is not going anywhere, and just like have a 20-year plan as well.
That's what I agree.
Yeah, and also I think our society as well has got us on this like go, get your thing up, get some seed investment, make $1 million in like 3 years, and that's not reality. We just need to like stop, pause, take a breather, and have just a little bit more patience as well, because that is where it will go in the future.
With SoundCloud, Chance the Rapper made SoundCloud in a way. So would you say with all your platforms, would you say there will be certain filmmakers, certain individuals, certain groups from Smash or Cinnect that would
100%. Yeah. Somewhere somebody's going to be, going to be discovered on these platforms, going to find a community on these platforms, going to get funded on these platforms and then distributed. And it may have never touched any of the traditional ways of doing that.
That's all I want to hear.
Yeah, it'll definitely happen. They're all, the next Joanna Hogg or the next Barry Jenkins or the next Giselle, like they're just there. So it's just giving a platform to discover the voices quicker, really.
Look at the host out of the UK.
Love
use Zoom and then
Rob Sadler. Well, look at Sean Baker. Sean Baker used the iPhone to make his first movie, Tangerine.
I used that story in my film school, man. That story, that's what inspires all the films.
It's amazing, and that I had it on my phone for ages. There's a great app where it basically formats it. Yeah.
That story is Steven Soderbergh.
I had that when I do recce's. I use that all the time, and Steven Soderbergh only shoots on his phone now. The thing is that you can, and maybe I'm slightly against that. I love analog and love celluloid a little bit, to be honest. But you can have all the fancy cameras in the world, but it really doesn't matter. You just need a great script and an actor, and that's why the iPhone is fantastic.
I think it's interesting, and what I think is great, because I have signed up to Smash, and I think it's a fantastic platform. The trouble is, it's the idea that you have to put on there, but I think it's great. But the democracy of technology and the democracy of creativity is that now people are keen to, with things like Final Draft, everything's been made a lot easier, but it's the idea of allowing an idea to gestate to the point that it is, because there are still films out there that took ages to be made. And I think, I did sound on a horror film, independent horror film. It's just like a boom and a simple thing. So it's just weird. So I think this is what I like about all this technology, that it is, there's more democracy and access.
From a Cinnect perspective, and something that's always been a part of our vision from the beginning, is that I see this as a Trojan horse, and so removing barriers for the underserved market, whether you're independent filmmakers in London or France or in South Africa, wherever you may be, if you don't have access or resources to get to the film markets, to sales agents, and you don't have an understanding of how important marketing is from very early on, it's very difficult to understand the distribution, the acquisition process. And so for us, Cinnect opening up and being transparent in that way, it shouldn't take us 10 years to find a Squid Games or a Parasite that has proven to do well. And a part of that, we actually are exploring how AI plays into that in terms of analytics. And Presh is much more technically eloquent than I am, so I'm going to pass on to him to explain a little bit more.
By the way, a couple of the directors were the first winners of the Short Film Fund this year were BAFTA nominated. So yeah, like that's already happening right now.
Host Rob Savage hosted the movie, if you haven't seen it, the Zoom movie that you referenced. It's a great example of that as well. I think he made that movie for what, £20,000-30,000 or something.
And great guys, they're down to earth. You can approach them.
And now he's making a studio movie with Blumhouse, which is like just incredible to go for that.
any more audience questions?
Well, you're not sorry, can I say more about AI?
Yeah. All right, yeah. So, yeah, I was wondering how much can I say? Yeah, but we're looking at ways to better predict like the commercial success of films, and it's still something that's sort of like under the hood and in development. So what we hope to introduce on Cinnect is a way for you to sort of feed in the information about your project and to know how it will do in each territory. And so we kind of built our own sort of predictive algorithm, and sort of working on again giving that information to filmmakers to understand how's the sales potential for film in a kind of very novel way, and also who your audience are for that as well. And so that's kind of something we're looking to introduce later on, hopefully this year. But yeah, we'll see.
It's more of a comment than a question. You mentioned before taking back a little bit of control of the industry. But what we're doing is, I want to fucking destroy the industry and build a new sustainable marketplace for indie content. You know, not having to rely on that traditional space, the traditional distribution, traditional financing, that sort of thing, making it sustainable, because that's the biggest problem right now. And that even kind of got highlighted even more with studios and networks and platforms not picking up content just because they were virtually released in festivals.
Yeah.
Who does that? It was Amazon and Netflix, or some of the bigger players.
The only way that's going to work is if we build communities around it. Because if you want to break it down, sure, you can make this film, but if it can't connect with an audience, it'll eventually fall over.
Yeah.
Because you don't, there isn't the infrastructure and there isn't an ecosystem. And that's again why I think it's just so important building these communities, and the communities also linking to each other. All of us, we're already linked, but after this we'll link, and then our communities will be together. And I think we need to keep doing that. So yeah, afterwards we should definitely share our socials and connect. Yep.
Yeah, I guess we have 10 more minutes. So any final thoughts?
Well, that's an interesting comment, because I think you're right. It needs to be dismantled and then put back together in some respect. What's difficult about, I hope that the cinema would still exist in that case, though, and that it's not all.
We're solving that issue.
Okay, good. Because I think also what's interesting with technology and film is that as a society we're used to flipping the page very quickly. Things like TikTok have made people not really sustain or at least keep somebody's attention. So therefore, when you have an art house movie, it's much harder to sell that movie because of technology at the same time. And I think, you see the Batman. I'm sure it's good. I've not seen it, but for me, it's interesting to see a movie that looks like an art house movie that's made for 200 million. I think that's important. It's also down to the film being made that we need a bit of both. So I'm all up for technology as long as it doesn't kill the cinema.
I was going to ask a question for the whole panel about the balance of jobs gained and lost through the tech that you're drawing on for your platforms. Are you seeing that more roles are coming up in industry as a result of tech and platforms like yours, or do you think that there's a risk that jobs could be lost? So some of the roles that people play now may be taken over by tech or AI in future. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, maybe with AI, I think to kind of combo both to respond to what you guys are asked about is, so for us, we want to have script to screen in the metaverse. So rather than breaking down what's already there and we're building it, we're just going to build a new version. So you can finance your film on the blockchain. Of course, you'll probably make it more traditional, but then we're going to own a piece of land in all the different metaverses, so the sandbox, etc., in which we'll have our virtual cinema. But what's going to be really cool about that is, so you can, when you buy into the film as well, you'll get a ticket to then go see the premiere. And the premiere will be in the metaverse, whether or not you're just watching that as on your 2D cinema, or you've got your VR headset on. But the cool thing about it is, if you guys, secret cinema, right? How awesome is that experience? And I think the act of going to the cinema, it's an event-based thing, right? You go there and you have an experience, and it's a set time. And we want to have that kind of thing in the metaverse, because then you can go in and we can build, like, say, for Stephen Graves' The Dead of Winter, we can build like that kind of horror-looking thing. And so you go in there and we've got someone to design it all, and there's like some cool little things you can like interact with, and then then you watch the film, and for me, what I want to see is when you watch it, the actual metaverse disappears, and then it just becomes a cinema screen. Whether or not that takes up your 2D one at home where you're having it with your family, or it's a virtual cinema, I think you still need to have that, not like where everyone's like having a chat, because you don't go to the cinema and everyone talks to each other while the film's going on, right? It's ridiculous.
We never do that.
Unfortunately. So, like, that's how I want to, build this new film industry. And so to answer your question, no, I don't think it's going to take away jobs. It's creating jobs. Like, we are actively looking for 3D modelers at the moment, and people that can create like NFT products, and people that are going to be able to build in this new world and program it. So, working alongside all the traditional filmmakers. So I think it's going to grow, not too big.
Yeah, just to kind of tag on to that, like I largely agree that we perhaps will see a shift in what types of jobs are available. But like for us, we also run Big Picture Film Club, and so for that we've been doing like pop-up screenings, kind of much more traditional in that way. And so there's still an appetite, I think, for audiences to see kind of new films that they haven't seen before, and it's just kind of finding the means and the ways to produce that, and then just kind of get that out there. And so we'll see jobs that we never thought 10 years ago that would ever, like 3D metaverse model, that we never thought that we'd see. And so will some jobs be lost in the process? Like, I think if you're talking about change, then yes, that some decision makers at some point, or however that looks like, if you're building a new industry. But I think the hope is that there's, again, with that democratization comes more new jobs for different people.
Just to add to that, it's, I think, more of an evolution of jobs, and also it's important to us how relationships are built. So, we've spoken to sales agents who completely, turn their nose at the idea of Connect because they're seeing it as something that's been taken away from them, when actually it's important to have people who understand local nuances and cultural traditions and how films play out in different markets. So there's still a human element that's needed with technology. I believe it should be sort of side by side, and one shouldn't replace the other.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think if you look at the number of different platforms which we've just discussed today, everything from short film to traditional film to all the enormous amount of content that the streamers are commissioning every year, mind-boggling amounts of money being spent on production, to future types of entertainment like on the metaverse or everywhere else, and not counting non-visual formats like podcasts, and then interactive formats like games, which are really blurring the lines between what is narrative, what is linear, and what is interactive. With all of that, I just think that there's just an evolution of our jobs, and there's just, I think right now there's a massive deficit in terms of actually getting people into the creative industries, whether it's purely on the pure creative side or on the creative tech side of things. There's just not enough people right now. It's a huge deficit in terms of the manpower that's needed.
I was just to say, I was at a tech talk last week in Brixton with some black tech engineers, and they said it's going to enhance civilization. It's not going to.
It's all good, it's all positive.
Yeah.
All on the way up.
And on that note, do you have any more questions? Sorry.
No, I was just going to mention as well that with films, Craig and I were very aware that introducing some of the tech into this space, we could shift the fabric of, because it's very fragile, of job placements, etc. And one of the things that we considered right at the beginning was, wouldn't it be amazing if there's a whole sort of locations archive? Everyone submits the pictures of the locations, etc., and people can sort of scout that, and it's accessible to every other film member. And they're like, well, where's the location scout? Where's their job now? And we're just very aware that as soon as you sort of open up these sort of, through tech, you open up this sort of abilities for everybody to sort of see that, then we are essentially shifting people around within the industry. So we've not built it, so purely for that reason. And when we ultimately will build it, it's only going to be available to those that identify themselves as a location scout and sort of as a job position. So it's things like that. We just have to be very aware that, of course, there's a lot of place for disruption, etc. in this industry, but at the same time, you want to keep the core fabric of what has made it great in the first place. And I think, we're just very aware of that as we're building film. We have a responsibility, I think, to maintain growth, not just disrupt.
Yeah, and regardless of what technology goes on, you always need the human touch. And as much as there's AI coming, I think that's still like 100, 200 years away from having that. There's lots of people I talk to in lots of other industries as well. And, I often say, we're building this new thing. And I'm like, well, hang on, isn't that going to affect, a friend who's got a recruitment company, and he's like, yeah, it's not really, because you still need that human touch. And that's why we're always going to be a business. So, yeah, I think technology enhances things and makes it easier to do them. Hopefully, the owners of these technologies use that extra revenue that they have by making things better, by putting it back into the community, rather than just being greedy pigs.
If you build it, they will
come. It seems like a good note to finish on, and so thank you very much to all our panelists today. We will hang around to just chat with everyone, and it'll be great to chat, get your feedback, hear your thoughts, understand a bit more about yourselves as well. And Cinnect, yes. Thank you.
Before everyone leaves, I just want to say thank you again from the festival, London Independent Film Festival, and thank you all for joining as well. And I'm just going to give a shout out about what's coming today. So we have another panel after this, which is a panel about how storytelling can change perceptions, and it is hosted by a female film club. So that is coming up next, and then we've got lots of fantastic shorts today. So make sure you check out those as well if you're here. And once again, huge thank you to everyone for joining us today. And also, I just want to say a big thank you to Genesis and to Film and TV Now, and all our other supporters and partners as well. Thank you.